Right? And I'm not playing no games. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Pops, and I said I would do this video. I did a little reporting on the end of Superman, Son of Kal-El. It'll be rebranded and rebooted and started under a completely new title. But the gay Superman, John Kent experiment is coming to an end. And I said, well, I have access to them, so I'm going to read them, and I want to go through with you briefly my thoughts on why this does not have readership, why this is being canceled, why it's not selling books, because it has so little to do with the sexuality of this character and more to do with how they alienate fans along the way, and what a terrible, crappy comic book this really, really is. So, all right, Superman, Son of Kal-El. We're only going to be on issue 18 when it's canceled. So we're only talking about like a year and a half. Did not get a very long run at all. This is pretty normal for modern comic books, by the way. It makes it very confusing to trying to advise people about where to jump in and how to start. Because once you got to about 2012, they start and stop comic books like crazy. It's completely insane. It's irrational, and it makes things overly complicated. So anyway, so this is a shot of John Kent on the left. They aged him up to be in this book. Previously to this, he'd been much, much younger. And to his left, our right, is Jay. Jay is his boyfriend, right? I think he is described in the press as being bisexual, which there's no evidence of being bi. There's no allusion to a woman being of interest to him, like, at all. So, well, right out of the gate, this is what they went for. They went for the traditional Superman look with John. John is young. I'm going to. So there's a comment in one of the issues that Jay is 17. So I'm going to put John somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 to 18. This book does have a disclaimer about ages 13 and up, which I did not notice right away till one of the later books. So there's that. Anyway, so the book right out of the gate shocked me because it says truth, justice, and a better world. Now, note that's not even the phrase that made all of the press, because they said it was about a better tomorrow. And that's kind of where we go as far as the replacement of truth, justice, and the American way, the classic phrase associated with Superman that dates all the way back to the 50s and TV shows and George Reeves and all that. So one thing I want to point out that is you're going to notice, I somehow got this thing stuck on, how do I turn off this? There we go. The art changes dramatically, but I will say the art in this issue and some of the issues is not the problem, right? I'm going to be piling on Tom Taylor because I don't think Tom Taylor is a good storyteller, and definitely is not a good fit in the Superman for the Superman books. So this is how it starts. It starts out with Clark, and then there's comments, and this is a gag. We're going to have gags, right? So this is a gag. There's something going on, and it's, quote, a planetary invasion. And of course, Jon Stewart says, no, it's an attempted planetary invasion. Okay, just put a pin in that, right? Because this is what happens in the beginning. There's lots of discussion about where he should be and what he should be doing and those kinds of things. And they cut to, he goes to where the Fortress of Solitude is, and there's a planetary invasion going on, and Batman's like, no, it's an attempted planetary invasion. Okay. And then a couple more frames, they go inside, and you have Wonder Woman with Lois. Lois is in labor. And then there's comments about, is no one worried about the alien invasion? There's an alien invasion? It's an attempted alien invasion. Oh, isn't it great? This is how they kick off their book. Like, I'm sort of like in shock. It's fine. It is not the worst jokes. It's just like that's the level of what they're going for with jokes. Anyway, so long story short, this is the birth of John. So this is the flashback sequence, and then there's Batman and Wonder Woman comments and about how protecting him and all these kinds of things. And then you cut to now, where you have a fire that's broken out, and there's Clark getting help with John. They're fighting alongside of one another. And then Jonathan realizes that there's a being in the center of all this. So there's this being that cannot manage their powers, and that's what's causing the problem, right? And you see him using his powers. This is the issue. So this is something we're going to get to very quickly. I want to go to this, Frank, because we have this happen a lot. Let's see here. Let me get this to zoom. Yeah. They embrace. Now notice how John is embracing this individual. The type of embrace is not a manly embrace. It's a very, I would say something that you are having an intimate relationship with. And normal men do not embrace like this. It's very rare that we embrace like that. It's kind of just the body language is like that. This comes up a lot. That's why I brought it up, right? So you have little things like you have the motto has been changed. You have really bad efforts at humor. And then you have this story, which goes very, very quickly into just the shocking abuse of authority, where Jonathan turns him over to these authorities, and they basically just neutralize him by like shooting him in the head. Like they have this thing that goes off like so. And Jonathan is like this super bleeding heart about everything. Okay. Then we're going to cut to Damien. So this is not traditional Robin like Dick Grayson or even Tim Drake. This is Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne. So this is Superman's son and Batman's son. They were young in the DC universe until this issue. They've been aged up a little bit, and they have this interaction where the jokes are that Damian is fighting these ninjas and John is just there. And of course, you can see the star bounce right off of his skin. He's remotely not going to be fazed by that. And this is where you start to get into like another phase of alienating people, right? Because here is where we're going to get all this stuff's going. They're talking about, Damien's like, I get what's bugging you. There's nothing heroic about serving the status quo. I mean, there's a reason I'm a vigilante. Okay. And then it's like, I don't want to put out fires and ignore the cause. And then he says, exactly. But it's easy to punch a ninja. It's a little harder to punch the climate crisis, inequality, and erosion of free press, and the rise of demagogues. And I'm like, oh, we are so on the nose. This is the politics that people get mad about. Not that there's not a story about climate change or inequality, or erosion of free press, or the rise of demagogues. Obviously, superhero universes are full of demagogues and oppression of free peace and inequality, right? Well, first off, let me just say there's a massive disconnect from the writer to the audience when you're talking about a Superman character who could quite literally change the climate, who literally could quite easily create cold and heat just by being there. Literally is just that level of thing. So this is very, very off-putting in the very beginning. And you sort of have this early phase of their arrogance and their narcissism. It's just very, very irritating. And what you have here is Damian giving John this phone, this device of, haven't you seen these videos? So you have this podcaster video content creator called The Truth, exposing corruption and injustice. Of course, you feel like you should do more, right? And then it's like, look at how Damien's talking to him, right? And then it's like, what do you want the symbol to stand for? Truth, justice, and a better world. And it goes, I just want to help. Good. And then you cut, because Superman's going to leave the planet, and you end up with, that your power. So fight for the truth. So we're going to go to the next issue, and it's all their advertisements, right? It's like little by little, you're shedding off people who would be interested in reading this book. Okay. So when we get to issue two is there's always this happen. There's always elements that are not terrible, right? This is part of what happens in these books. It starts off with the truth. He's been watching his videos, right? He's totally getting, they're setting up asylum seekers and Gomorrah, and there's this situation that you deal with, but he has to go to school. So this is his disguise to go to school as Finn Connors. It's actually a pretty good disguise. Like he really doesn't look like himself, so that works out pretty well. But as one can expect, the story's going to go sideways, and what happens is different than what Clark would have done. So here you have your shot. You have this is the first introduction to Jay. There on the left. Let me get to that panel. He's basically an activist, right? So this is Jay, the activist, taking signatures, right? And then you have school shooter, green-haired school shooter, okay? And that's it. Starts just going to shoot up the place, right? And of course, instead of coming up with a solution to keep his anonymity, kind of like pulling off the Clark Kent routine, which has been done for years, he does full-on exposure. I'm Superboy, whatever. Takes care of the situation, and everyone gloms onto him like he's the hero that he is, and he's basically kind of forced to leave. And of course, then he's on this planet talking with Clark, who has all the trust in the world with him. Here's the key to the Fortress Solitude, and I'm leaving you. I got to go away for a while. You're going to be Superman now. So what does he do? It becomes a refugees conversation. We're going to talk about refugees. That's what we do. That's how the story goes. And then when we turn the refugees over to the authorities, the police are handcuffing them because they broke the law. They're illegals. And he freaks out, uses his heat vision to break the handcuffs, and it becomes like a threatening confrontation, basically. Right? Forcing their hand because he's Superman. What are you going to do to him? Right? And then, of course, there's the emotional, literally like child, feel for the children moment. And if you just can't understand how irritating this gets, and then you have like the guy that knows who he is the truth guy, turns out to be Jay, and you can tell by their mannerisms and whatever they have a connection, right? It's going to be all about their relationship. That's how it ends. We have to cut away a little bit to the truth and this other person on the land of Gomorrah, and we're going to get to the villain. Okay, that's how that plays out. So when you move quicker through the series, what you find is that there's constant like disruption of the story to have some sort of moment that allows for the advocacy. There's just something. There always has to be something. So this starts off, which, by the way, this was the ad on the second page, this effeminate new version of Aquaman, which, oh boy, that was rough. So in the second issue, the standalone meta-human person is this, shaved head, purple, causes earthquake person, right? Fault Line, I think, is her name. And you have this whole back and forth about all that. And then you get to this whole thing with Jay, right? So what you end up having is this sort of, this is the introduction to the family, right? And Jay's going to be invited to go meet the family. That's what we do. So we basically have the one scene with the one Fault Line character. That is over by page 8. Right? Page 8 ends. This is the end of that. She's here at the Star Lab. And the rest of the issue is introducing Jay to the family. Okay? And then Clark leaves and goes on a flight with Lois, and all that's happening. And the house, the Kent house, is being targeted, and there's a big explosion at the end. And that's how it happens. So none of the rest of the book, it's just 24 actual pages. I know there are ads and stuff. Right? But nothing else happens. It's like 16. So 1/3 of the book had some sort of action, or less than 1/3 technically, but around that, right? And then we pick up the story with Jay's fine, everyone's fine, John saves everybody, but everything is destroyed. Then you have this other character, Flash shows up. There's all this bickering about Flash, and this is supposed to be Wonder Woman. Now, it's not my Wonder Woman. It's probably not your Wonder Woman. Right? This is the first appearance of Hippolyta, I think is how you say her name, as Wonder Woman. So this is what she looks like. Right? We get that. So I don't know about you, But it's not like just one character. It's like a lot of changes. This is what you're going to look at. And look how effeminate and juvenile John looks in this, because we have a different artist, right? We have to change. So it gets weird because they'll just do these things and you're not quite sure why they're drawn this way. And it's not like just the one sexuality thing that's been changed or the one little thing. Like when Jay's brought into this, because we have all this stuff that happens. This book carries on like this for a while. You have flashback stuff, and you get this. You get this sort of like very effeminate other people showing up. This is Ari, who's non-binary, and Wink, Ari's girlfriend and member of the Justice League Queer. Wink is considered part of the LGBTQ plus community. Yeah. And this art is insane because John Tim, who does the first 3 episodes, doesn't do this art. This art is by a different person named Danielle D. Nicolo. I don't know their names. Okay. Sorry I butchered their names. But look how crappy it looks. It's very, I always call it Berkeley Art School, right? So we don't. For this issue, we're going to do Berkeley Art School, right? And in this issue, and this is the art that we get. This is the art that you get. So if you had a reader, this is what you get instead. If you had readers, you're going to get turned off because you've changed your art. You're giving people this kind of art. That's what you're getting. Okay? Keep that in the back of your mind for a minute. Because it only keeps going. Again, why are we losing customers? We're shedding customers as we go along. Like I don't want to hear about, oh, it's about their sexuality and their gay kiss, or nobody cares. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that does, but reality in the grand scheme of things. And look at the art switches back. Tim is back on the art. John Tim's back on the art. Look at the difference, right? You have this scene. Look at the art. The art immediately gets more complex. We have primary colors that are back. We have interesting movement. We have a lot of different use of powers and things like that. We don't have people standing around looking at each other in their pastels. Right? Okay. So this is issue 5. Yeah, I'm on issue 5. Right? I'm trying to keep up because I know I have to kind of keep moving quickly, but I also don't want to get too bad. You would think that the writers and the artists would try to have a decent transition and to keep everything the same. Anyway, they used the device on John, and basically he sort of like passes out at Jay's place, basically. Like he's just there as, hanging out. He can't control everything. And that's when we get that's when we get our first kiss, like the official kiss. And this is what you get as their fallout, right? So that's where all the hoopla came from, and that's what all of the press came from, so they could sell some books. And I've talked about it several times. I hate it all because I don't think it's appropriate to treat people's sexuality as like as a gimmick. I don't. The next story in the series is this one. It's the actual annual. I didn't read the annual. I'm not reading the annual. It jumps around. It doesn't. I don't need to read the annual. Completely doesn't stay in line for me. It's more like a publishing order, not the reading order. So I skipped that and jumped over to 6. So 6 is just filler. There's just literally nothing happening in this book that matters. There's literally just nothing that happens. We have Jay's origins. We have Lois and Batman talking. We have lots of flying around. We have Jay and John sitting and talking over food. That's the kind of stuff we have in this issue. This issue is completely boring and not uneventful. There's nothing of any significance that happens in this book. It's a complete waste of time. This is the equivalent of action in this book, is this quick little moment where he rips a roof off and does this to save somebody. That's it. It's like a couple pages is what we get. And it just flies away, and then we have a shot of Jay, and then we're at basically more of this backstory of the origin is part of what we're getting to. It's just a complete waste of time. And then what do we follow up the waste of time with? Because I know we probably have some readers left, right? I mean, it's clear there's going to be some readers that are left. So what we do on issue 7 is we try to make sure that people know that he's an activist. We want everybody to know. So we have Superman, Jay, this person in pink, Aqualad, Protect Our Planet, Climate Justice, School Strike for Climate, let's just say Solution, Not Pollution. Again, Superman could change the environment in any given moment, right? Okay. So we have the conflict, and basically we end up with this whole Jay is not just this truth-telling YouTuber. He is secretly has like this organization on this boat, and here they are. The truth. It's these people, and John's going to work for him because he's superior, and this is all Luthor nonsense. And Luthor has ties, and then a kaiju shows up. So the big bad, the Bendix, and Luthor are in communication, and you have this sort of like giant monster thing, and Aquaman's there. Well, I'm sorry, not the real Aquaman. This Aquaman. I don't know who this Aquaman is. I tried to make sure I wrote it down. By the way, we changed art. For those of you who did notice the difference, yeah, we changed art. So that's why we have very much more effeminate characters. Because Aquaman's Jackson Hyde is this Aquaman, and it's kind of like a soy boy version of Aquaman, talking about ocean deserts and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. Anyway, so these issues are strung together in just awful manner. Like, I didn't know kind of what to say as I was going through these books. I was like, what on earth is going on? It's just so weak and so bad. Oh, geez. I hate that it. Okay, there it goes. See more. Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to get to the other issues so we don't have to go through every single one. Because there aren't that many things that we need to point out here. You have this little like crossover story with a Nightwing character and all of that. You have like the art is always just so uneven and inconsistent. There's an art there that changes again. So his name is Bruno Dodondo, and everything is completely different. And there's a scene where this dude, he's part of this whole thing, and he has like a thing on his head detonates, and John can't handle it. John has PTSD, and there's like the awkward, uncomfortable hugging that has to happen again. Like, it's just so frustrating that we have to have these very homoerotic huggings and things like that. The colors are all out of whack. There's like daddy son issues with Dick Grayson, and I oh my gosh, it's just this is. And you have like whole issues in this series that just have next to nothing that matters. It's like just people walking around. This is a crypto issue where crypto is more interesting. Batman's kind of there, but it's not really what you think. And then you have these issues where you're just like, it's about them and their relationships. And this is the stuff that they focus all of his time on and not telling any Superman stories. And by the way, none of this wraps up. This is all still one big story. This is still, just so you know, this is not like you're going to buy a comic book and you're going to have a standalone story. You're going to buy a comic book and you're going to have a 3-issue story or a 6-issue. No, we are literally on issue 14. This is still the same story going. These are more of these people that Jay knows, with their shaved haircuts and colored hair and their bad attitudes. And it's all still the same. Nothing has ever changed. We're still in the middle of the same story. Here's another one of these awkward hugs. This is Jonathan and Damian hugging. Yeah. It's not like one relationship thing. It's like all of the relationships are just so awkward and kind of out of sorts and place. And I don't know. I just felt like nothing connects in the ways they should connect to a reader that wants to read. And then whatever audience you're going for, that audience just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? The story, if there is one at this point, we're like 15 issues in, it's more about Jay than John, his connection to this group. At one point, John lets in and then leaves Jay in the Fortress of Solitude. Like, there's a person, I don't just, again, it never stops. Like we just constantly have to remind the audiences that this is what's important. This relationship is what is important, and we're going to be coming near the end. We're going to wrap up this series. And it is, to me, there was no surprise as I got through some of these issues, why no matter what audience you started with 100 people, you're going to lose this many. Then in this issue, you're going to lose this many. Then you're going to lose this many. Nothing happened in this issue. So at some point, the story just goes on forever. Like comic books are not meant to be over a year commitment to one single story. This is the same problem these TV shows have that they're doing like on Disney Plus and stuff. It's like, okay, tell a story in a TV shows used to be you could watch every episode. You could have them out of order. You could follow what was going on. Now you're invested 6 or 8 hours and nothing of significance happens. You don't even know some of the characters' names if you don't have subtitles on. This comic book is no different. It doesn't matter where you jump in. Nothing changes. The story doesn't end. It just keeps going. So maybe the cancellation is they've had enough and they need to put an end to this story and making me write a different story. Oh, I couldn't believe this. This is crazy. 15 issues are on the app, and it's all about all this stuff that doesn't matter. The story never changes. He's this unlikable, irrational, young. They're so arrogant. These two are so arrogant. They have everything figured out. Forget about life's wisdom and life lessons. They know the answers to everything. They can uncover the truth. There's a scene where Lois is like, you might want to cool your jets a little bit. Oh, by the way, Jonathan, Kent, and Martha are alive, which I think I mentioned because they had the attack on the Kent farm. And there's a scene where Batman's kind of like questioning some things. Like, John's getting a little, oh no, you should, Jonathan starts lecturing the Batman. And I'm like, oh my God. I couldn't have done that. Let's just presume that I could have gotten through when I bought a comic book and it had Jonathan Kent lecturing Batman, basically saying, yeah, I know you're the world's greatest detective, but you're wrong. Because you haven't had kids in this way. You don't know what this kid's going through, whatever. He's literally like the most dangerous and powerful human on the planet, or sorry, not really human, but entity. And your concerns are not valid. Oh, screw you people. Tom Taylor, you're lucky you're even getting another series to keep playing around with this nonsense. I think you should just be let go, and we should just put an end to it, put everyone out of their misery. So that's my take on it. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you love this stuff. Maybe you think it's freaking great. So you tell me. I don't get it. I don't get it. So we need happiness and joy. We need to chill. Here's Bob Ross to show you how.
Bob Ross, all I do is chill.